As communicators, government and civil society is to bring government closer to the people, to ensure greater accessibility and accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the doorstep of local government elections. And it is our responsibility to ensure that this complex machinery of local government is better understood by our people. It is also our responsibility to ensure that the roles and responsibilities of councillors is better understood, so that our people can understand how to address their needs before it gets taken to the streets. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here under the banner of the Community Newspaper Initiative, the South African Communications Entity and Association, the South African Procurement Forum, and we are gathered here to also understand the importance of community media. This is the voice of our people, and we should give it the respect it deserves and the time that it deserves. The South African Local Government Association has taken a decision to ring-fence 30% of its advertising budget to be directed to community media. I encourage my colleagues from the state-owned entities to do the same. It is our responsibility to ensure that we support community media. And in supporting community media, we will reap the benefits of talking to our people. It is also the intention of the Minister of Communication and the Government Communications and Information Services to ensure that this intent of ring-fencing 30% of government's budget to be directed to community media becomes a policy. And it must become a policy as soon as possible. I'd like to welcome the Minister of Communications, Honorable Minister Faith Mutambi, to this August gathering. Thank you for being here. On a previous occasion, I was in one gathering with the Minister of Communications, and she made sure that she stopped and greeted every participant in that meeting. And today she has done the same. A true minister of the people. Thank you very much. Before I call upon the SUCA President, Mr. Congress Mahlangu, I'd like to tell you a quick story about the SUCA President. Just a quick one. 2 years back, when I first met Congress Mahlangu, we sat in a lecture theatre at Wits Business School. And we were in a strategy lecture by Professor Thabo Musala. And we were talking about strategic alliances. And out of that lecture, this gathering is as a result of the strategic alliance that we learned in our strategy lecture. Strategic alliances such as these is what will improve the levels of communication in our country and amongst our organizations. As government, we cannot act as an island. We must form strategic alliances with civil society, community organizations, and the private sector. In that lecture room, the SUCA President was known as the Congress of the People. And I think it's a nickname that will stay with him forever. And I only hope and wish that he continues to build strategic alliances. It is through strategic alliances that we can achieve much more than what we envision to achieve. Thank you very much to the SUCA President for building this strategic alliance. I believe the intention is to make sure that these meetings happen every second month, so that we can discuss key issues that are affecting government, civil society, community media, and the communication space at large. Thank you very much, and I welcome Mr. Congress Mahlangu, SUCA President.
colleagues here. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Congress Makanda. I am in no way associated to Congress of the people. Probably the Congress movement, yes, but not in the context of what we see today. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us in this important event that seeks to ensure that we create a better atmosphere for our community through the community meeting. I want to take this opportunity to welcome our Minister of Communications here. She never disappointed us in every respect of every meeting. I think she was there during the launch of SUKA in 2004. And she was there before all of us. And during her presence, despite all the difficult that we gave her, she never complained. Despite all the demands that were put to the minister, demanding everything, demanding her presence, demanding the advice, the minister never complained. And that's the type of the minister that we want to associate ourselves. He's not a minister because today he's holding this position, but he's a people's person, and we want to encourage all other ministers to take a cue from this minister. I want to take this opportunity to welcome also our Chief Electoral Officer, Musutu Moyebia. And once again, congratulate the IEC for their launch of their National Results Operation Center yesterday. That was the watermark. I'm sure and I'm certain that about 2.26 million South Africans have registered to vote. And I'm not sure of the number of candidates, because when it comes to numbers, I'm very presidential. You forgive me. So, I want to also welcome the acting CEO of the GCIS, Donald Lipuka. A man who has steered the ship to ensure that SUKA is well and alive. Today, we see SUKA running is precisely because of the commitment and the demonstration of leadership that he has shown to this organization. I want to also welcome the chairperson, the board chairperson of State-owned Entities Procurement Forum, Kamukhelo Mbane. Kamukhelo is also one of the leading members of the procurement. We want to ensure that procurement in this country become a pro-poor initiative. He's tired of talking about pro-poor agenda which does not serve our people, and he felt that procurement should be at the core face of the transformation agenda of this country. And that's why he associates with SUKA. We don't associate ourselves with people who are not progressive. I want to acknowledge also the CEO of Community Newspaper Initiative, Lola Michelle Mashian. I'm not sure where she is. Oh, there she is. She is a woman of substance. She's got a stone heart. She's unbreakable. Despite all the challenges that she's going through to deal with community difficulties, she remained very firm. And it's also the type of this individual that as an organization as SUKA, we take inspiration from. She's the person who always wants things to happen. And I must acknowledge here and now that this event that is taking place this morning, we owe it to her by and large. For the active participation. I want to take this opportunity to welcome and thank members of the executive of SUKA present here. I think I'm trying to identify, I think one member who's not here is our Secretary General, is our General Secretary, Musmona, because he prefers to be referred to as the General Secretary, not as the Secretary General, because he says there's only one Secretary General in this country, and it belongs to a certain organization. But then the members of SUKA have been instrumental in keeping this organization moving. I think you can see the type of the individual we have. The program director, Tahir Siema, is one of the executive members of SUKA. I want to acknowledge you, sir. Tabiso Mafodiela, a member of SUKA, present here. You are welcome, sir. The executive member, Aida Tikeleti, executive member. You can just stand up because we are not doing music. He's an executive member of SUKA. I think we have another executive member of SUKA here, Nikelwa. I think they've just resolved the strike now, and she said she promised to be here. Oh, you're here. Don't put whiskey there. Nikelwa is there. Okay. Thank you very much. SUKA advisory panel members. Ladies and gentlemen, we have, as SUKA took a decision that for us to enable this organization to be professional, you need to have like-minded individuals. And to that effect, we have appointed 5 SUKA advisory panel members. And the first advisor is Mzwanele Mahi. And a very strange that he's advising the minister on the other side. He's advising the minister on the other side. So he's playing us against the minister sometimes. Because when I'm looking for him, he says to me, I'm with the minister. When the minister is looking for him, he says, no, I'm with Congress. So we have that problem. But the minister today, we have managed to make a choice that, no, we got him. He has to report everything now so that we can. So he must send all this every time. He must take a picture with me and send it to the minister as an evidence. I want to also welcome all the fraternal members of the organization. I think it's Jimmy Mani who always says that you must move away from the name Jimmy. And he said we're officially launching the name Zwanele, and you'll all be invited. I want to also acknowledge Nzima Dunga, the SUKA advisory member from the brand SA, is a board member of brand SA. Nzim, don't be shy, don't be shy. I'm not shy. We have also appointed the young aspiring entrepreneur, the budding entrepreneur, to be part of the SUKA, which is Mansi Wakatao. He's a group CEO of TYP who has been hosting SUKA at this current moment, and I think we need to acknowledge him. The last one here, I think, is Michelle Mashiani, is also one of our members of advisory panel member. Michelle, you are acknowledged. I miss one member. Who's the other member of advisory team? Because these people keep on changing themselves sometimes. Yeah, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just quickly give the aspect of our meeting this morning, why we are gathering here. Program Director, our minister is not only our guest of honor this morning, but she should also be delivering our key message about why we are gathering here this morning. It will be therefore a career limiting to move on my side to steal the thunder from there. Mine is to provide an overview of who we are as SUKA, what gave rise to this organization. But more importantly, why did you take a decision to work side by side with state-owned entities, Procurement Forum, the CNI, in bringing this type of event? If by the end of my short speech, you will understand this background and the context, then my mission would have been accomplished. The formation of SUKA, ladies and gentlemen, was in response to the Presidential Review Committee on the SOE that was established by the President in 2010. The review committee was in response to the need to beef up policy on SOE and strengthen their role in the economy, in particular, and in society in general. Critical, the committee was mandated to assess how SOEs can respond to a clearly defined public mandate and support the developmental state aspiration of government. The report was handed over to the President in 2012, and in 2013, it was made public. And if you want to know that, I think the report was also very damning in terms of the lack of collaborative effort amongst the SOEs. But I think one of the key findings that we managed to establish was that we have about 715 SOEs in this country. And therefore, SUKA felt strongly that if we have about 715, we then need to create a system where in which, as communicators, are able to pull together and able to communicate what government is doing. Remember, it's often said that the political will of the government is expressed through its budget. And that budget most found its place within the SOEs. SOEs are spending more or less about 200 billion per annum, and bigger than even any other organization that is listed in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Therefore, it's very important to us as communicators to begin to clear a proper direction in terms of how to communicate. And that was another reason why SUKA was established. In 2014, SUKA was officially launched with the sole mandate of fostering professionalism amongst communicators, but more importantly, to share knowledge and expertise, do away with silo mentalities. Communicators are the most difficult people to organize because they are also independent thinking. They are one people who cannot bring them together easily. And it takes a courage and hard work to bring communicators together. And they are the least people who communicate amongst themselves. The silo mentality is always driving them because they want to claim small glories in their corners. They say, no, I'm the one who started this. I'm the one who started this. And they forget that we are saving one couple. And that particular message to resonate with all members of SUKA, because that's why we were established and that's why we were formed. As I indicated, we cannot be spectators while our country is being torn apart by inability to inspire confidence due to self-made yet avoidable confusion. SUKA was born out of the collective vision that said it is incumbent upon ourselves to defend our democracy. Then the question, why are we part of this breakfast this morning? Ladies and gentlemen, we seek to establish and strengthen the relationship between SOEs and community media. I'm very encouraged today that I've seen most of the commercial media present here. And to me, it's a demonstration that they take community media very serious. But they also take the needs and the interests of our communities very serious. They are here to ensure that this particular program, I'm not speaking on their behalf, but I'm sure that they are here to ensure that communication within the rural areas and within communities should be strengthened. As an organization, we have developed this initiative with SUKA and SUPF so that we can be able to ensure that we create a mutual respect. We also respect the needs of our communities, because we realize that our communities, more often than not, they are on the receiving end. And we need to ensure that we deepen this to our communicators within the SOE so that they begin to take our work very seriously. However, there's a problem with the SOE, is that most of them do not carry the developmental oriented program as reflected in the National Development Agency. Most of all SOEs, they use media buyers who in turn send greater part of budget to commercial media. And with community media receiving grants, strangely, when SOEs have public announcement to make, they run faster to community media. They run faster to commercial, to community media to want to get those particular announcements done for free. And then they don't talk about professionalism. When you ask them and say, invest in community media so that our communities can get exposure, they can know the issues, they say, no, but you see, they're not professional. They start pointing on shortcomings and weaknesses. Yet, when they want to make public announcement using the same particular media, they don't have a problem. SOEs do not have a problem to be criticized to be lambasted by the same commercial media, yet they'll go and invest in the same particular commercial media. But they cannot invest in institutions that empower communities. And it's one of the areas that the SUKA want to come out very strong and ensure that our SOEs remain relevant to the chapter of transformation in this country. Minister, we are not honestly telling the good story to our people in this country. An example, a person in Limpopo must know that fuel coming to our filling station is because of the gas pipeline managed by Petro SA. But people in our area do not know that this pipe of fuel is from Petro SA. They don't understand the role of Petro SA in their own life. They will only know the Petro SA when there's a crisis about that petrol pipe that does not exist. But as long as it's functioning properly, people will never know about it. And we are saying we must begin to tell our own story so that we can demonstrate leadership, that our country is in the safe hands and we are able to communicate with that. As part of contributing to national goals of the media diversity and transformation, government agencies have a responsibility to lead by example. By directing a portion of the advertising budget to community media, state-owned entities will be assisting through strengthening and sustaining media, community media. Having said that, we need to indicate that our relationship with community media must not be solely based on advertising. Neither should our support to community media be limited to advertising. By supporting community media, we will be communicating the dismantling of many barriers to participation in the media, as consumers and as writers, as owners. Therefore, our main objective of this partnership with CNI and SUP is to locate community media within the current debates on media transformation and diversity, to encourage SUKA members to appreciate the untapped potential and value that community media can add to their work, to encourage SUKA members to support community media through advertising, news and program content. We want to emerge from this breakfast with a clear common understanding of what constitutes community media as opposed to local community media, especially those that are owned like institutions like Kextens, who now claim that community media is different as local media. Local media is completely different. Your record is not referred to as community media. It's local. Let me indicate why did we use CNI as our partner. Firstly, it's owned by an African woman who is solid, and despite being humiliated by captain of the industry, she remained resilient. And she has a very strong temperament. We are excited to partner with her precisely because out of 108 publications that they are now on her stable, she has now integrated about 105 radio stations under her wings. And I consider that as a very massive achievement. I think we need to congratulate her. And one thing that was said as we were raising funds for this event, we were approached by one of the leading banks who wanted to fund this initiative. And consistent to the principle that Michelle already said, she said if this event is not going to be sponsored by our black entrepreneurs, we are not going to give exposure to institutions that already have an exposure. So we have to use our black brothers. And he said, if we're not going to get the support, we have to use our own pockets. And this particular event was paid on our own pockets. And Michelle, she funded this particular event. And this is despite money that was thrown. And now obviously at some point I was tempted to say, but Michelle, how do you allow these guys to run away with this money? She said, but Congress, you see, these guys, they are going to control this project, but they don't have the interest of this project at hand. They just want to make sure that their bottom line is, they want to expand their bottom line. And she refused, despite obviously my poor attempt to say, the money is money of the old Michelle, but Michelle refused and said, no, let me use this. And one of the bank members is here, and she's very disappointed. And she wanted to meet me on the side. Thinking about Michelle, I did not, Michelle, I can assure I did not take anything. She tried to speak to me, I refused. So these are type of the people, minister, that we want to work with in building this organization. I think at this juncture, I want to leave this meeting by concluding that as SUCA, we are prepared to work with any particular institution, and want to urge all our members within the SOEs to remain vibrant, to ensure that communication takes center stage. We cannot afford a situation where our country is in the media, especially SOEs are all in the media for all wrong reasons. Therefore, this community breakfast, which are going to be rolled bi-monthly, will serve as a platform for other SOEs to make use of this platform so that they can communicate their interests better. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Program Director and thank you for the wonderful, for listening to my brief address. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity to apologize for introducing the co-hosts incorrectly. Now, unfortunately, in government, we have this tendency of producing too many acronyms, which are often difficult to pronounce and to remember. So the co-host of this function is the State-Owned Entities Communicators Association, the State-Owned Entities Procurement Forum, and the Community Newspaper Initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most prolific writers of our time, Noam Chomsky, once said that in this century, wars will be principally won and lost based on media participation before boots are sent on the ground. This is the importance of the media. And it is this importance that the State-Owned Entities Communicators Association understands and puts first and foremost. Our role and responsibility is to strengthen the ties between the media and community, the State-Owned Entities Association and government entities. And we'll be doing this periodically to ensure that the relationship is strengthened. Now I would like to call upon the State-Owned Entities Procurement Forum, represented by its chair, Mr. Khamogelo Mampane. Thank you.
Thanks, MC, and to the President. I guess I must say all protocol observed. I've never seen the President having a speech. This is the first time. And I don't know if this is a preamble, what's going to happen after the election. So I might be going around with a speech, so I'm not sure. But it will be a sad day to lose you to Parliament if that was going to happen. We hope that it doesn't happen. But I really today want to declare my love to a woman. But the husband is here as well, so. Her husband is here. Maybe share. Yeah. You know, in the States they like to say, but black woman rocks. Yeah. But what do we say here in Mzansi? Watinda bafazi? That's the black woman that rocks. When I first met her, I was still working for the Revenue Service. Remember, you came to my office and I tried to introduce her to one of the communicators. There is the stuff that you will hear, it's very sad. You know, people, unfortunately, there are some individuals that believe that their salary that they earn doesn't come from the people. And they're working for government. And when you take these initiatives to them, unfortunately, They believe that no, the market must dictate. And it's the very same thinking when the State-owned entity procurement forum was started in 2004, when the politics at that time was saying, no, you are not allowed to talk to each other. Because the mentality says that you divide and rule. I mean, unfortunately, that's what they want. And they even wrote regulations, and that man will tell you about those regulations. That says, no, you must allow the market to dictate. Government, you don't have control over your spend. And that's very, very unfortunate. So when we introduced Michelle to some of the communicators, well, I'll blame my procurement people as well, because even procurement people will believe, no. This is 90-10, my chief. This is 80-20. You can't intervene. You can't now write your own rule and say, no, I want to work with CNI. Because somebody decided to write the rule that says, no, the market. And by the way, that market also says that it doesn't have to be localized. And a clear indication which makes this marriage of Suka and Suk together, it's because of the 600 billion spend that we are spending for goods and services. And part of that money, we have given it, if you think about the agencies, the marketing agencies, we've given it to 4 entities that are not local. They control the industry, they manipulate what we read, they manipulate what we see on TV, they manipulate our kids' thinking because we send them to those schools where they put the budgets. And unfortunately, we need people like the president, Dademani, to be thought leaders that says we're going to change the status quo. And the president, we never, if you think about what these big 4 companies, and it's a big 4 all over the shop. It's a big 4 in printing, it's a big 4 in marketing agency, it's a big 4 all over the shop. They never make big announcements when they come and capitalize our economies. They never make big announcements. They just come and implement, right? We want to make big announcements, but they never do that. Right? When government tries to introduce a policy that says, no, we have to change the status quo, government spends more time in the courts trying to defend, utilizing that 600 billion spend to change the landscape of our economy. And it is so sad that today in this room, when someone is going to receive a bid, unfortunately we still do tenders, but we have to do tenders today, which is fine. But when the tender pack gets to a committee, because I used to work, as I said, I used to work for revenue services, now I own my company. If I bid for a project in government, and I did that just to test it, because when I left the revenue service, I told myself that I don't want to be a tenderpreneur, because the finance minister will kill me if he is. But we knocked, Minister, on doors of private sector. We knocked. Those doors are closed. When I have to knock on the doors of public sector, I fall into the very, very same hole that Michelle fell into. When they receive my bid, they receive it with another name. This is a very big name, no? And they're like, well, no, this one we know. This name we know. But this one, who is this person? Unfortunately, I'm trying to buy a lot of this book, I Write What I Like. I'm trying to buy most of those books and go and send it to all the heads of communication and the heads of procurement in government. Because they don't realize that they feel, they think that they are inferior than a white person, unfortunately. And most of them are black. When they see an SMME, when they see a black company, they see poor quality. They see a tenderpreneur, they see a middleman. That's what they see, unfortunately. When that bridge on M1 collapsed, BBC said, oh, at least it was not a black company that did it. Right? Why should we even think about that? Why should it even crosses our mind when we have to empower our own communities and also link black person and black-owned companies, and especially SMEs, as inferior, as poor quality, as agencies? But when we deal with the other parties, no, you see, this one, they have a lot of experience, but we have to do, no, we can't do that. So my commitment to the lady that I love, and sorry to the husband. My commitment today to you, Michelle, and to CNI, and to Suka, is that we want to make you our Michelle. You are officially our media partner of all our events. For starters, as we'll be doing our awards, and everybody will give you a brief about our awards, and some of the people he upset in that meeting for telling them the truth. So we're giving you the rights to, as a media partner, for the state-owned entities summit that will be held on the 13th to the 15th of September. Also giving you media rights to the awards, which brings, of course, international people, where we also award SMEs, where we also look at professionals, and we're also running together with Suka as well. So we're also making you a formal media partner. And for SUF, our mandate, as the President rightly said, was, as I finished my speech, I thought I wrote the speech, but because you wrote this, I'm not going to speak from the heart. So from our side, that budget spend that we've been giving this commercial media. Remember, every week you used to read tenders, you used to read newspapers, and there was almost 20 pages of tenders. You know how much is a page today? To put an advert in the newspaper. 20 pages, done by government. All government put in tenders. And exactly the same thing that the President said. We took it out. You will never see a tender. Someone, if you see a tender in a newspaper, please let me know, because those people are not implementing government policy. There's no more tenders that are advertised in any newspaper. We are now putting it in one central point. And I'm hoping and I'm challenging Suka to also do the same with communication and with all the other HR stuff. When we send all these adverts, because we want to be known, right? We only call Michelle when we go to social movement. No. So I'm really putting a challenge to communications and to also talk to the HR people as well, but you have the control. You are the final arbiter that says which newspaper we're going to select. Nothing should go to that. And if you want to centralize it, we can work together with you. If CNI is going to own that platform, maybe let it be. Right? But we can start working on that. I thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It is also the responsibility of Suka to ensure that it educates its political principals that when they demand to appear on commercial media, they must equally demand to appear in community media. Very often as heads of communications, we are told by our political principals to deliver us on SABC prime time, to deliver us on E-News prime time, to deliver us on the front page of Sowetan, to deliver us on the front page of the Times, to deliver us on the front page of the Citizen. But equally so, we have to educate our political principals so that we reach a stage where they too demand that they appear in community newspapers such as Coal City News, Alex Pioneer, Deep Sloot Pioneer, Cape Flats News, Izimvo Zabantu, Masepala News, Metro News, Taxi Talk, Siyabuswa Express, and Social Move Sun. Our leaders must understand the importance of community media. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call upon the Suka General Secretary, not Secretary General, Suka General Secretary, Mr. Z. Malunga. Thank you. Okay, apologies. Suka Advisor, Mr. Z. Malunga. Thank you.
Thanks. I thought I had been promoted. That promotion was quickly and swiftly, taken back. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the Minister, Suka President, and all protocol observed. I am not very good with protocol because I work mainly in the private sector. So in the private sector, there are no protocols. We call everybody in first name. I think that's probably the only progressive thing that happens in the private sector. We call each other on the first name, whether you are CEO or something, they still call you with your first name. You know, I see, and then we were also talking about the need for South Africans generally to be educated on protocol. You know, for instance, when the minister walked in, some people stood up, some people sat down, so we don't know whether there is a protocol that says you should stand up when the minister comes. And you don't know who you should recognize first in an environment like this, for instance. How would you know? And I think Suka, maybe even Brenda say might want to take this project to talk about how do you observe protocol, because we are new to this thing called protocol, especially in a country like this that is only democratic differentiated. But anyway, lastly, I think before I just quickly speak about what I came here to talk about, the Suka president tends to think that I'm shy. Yeah, I know he doesn't know. So I don't think even Comrade Mzwa sitting next to you there would agree with him or would think that is possible. But anyway, brothers and sisters and ladies and gentlemen, today I have been asked, I was asked yesterday last night by the president to stand in for our general secretary to basically talk here so that, in the African societies or in the village, the chief is never away. When the chief is away, somebody always comes in to speak on behalf of the chief. So just look at me as filling in for the chief, not the chief himself. Because the chief is not here. He was delayed somewhere. But I think the role of community newspapers or community media, or rather broadening to about community media, is very important for democracy, of course, as we know. But I think I would venture to say, I call it the early warning system. Community media can become an early warning system. And I think, Minister, if I can venture in to also say that you could actually, if you had a working community media generally, you could actually minimize even the protests that you see in communities. Because what you do is that if you have got functioning community media and responsive government, you are likely to have less protests, because then you will get that early warning through community media that can happen between those two. But it also helps to facilitate communication between government and society, and especially communities. Because what tends to happen, I work at President Say, I sit on the board there. What tends to happen is that every survey you do, you find that South Africans are very schizophrenic. You've got, while everybody's proud to be South African, like the flag, and like Madiba, and so on and so forth, and even in this election, Madiba is there. But when it comes to whether the country is making progress or not, South Africans are very negative. Across the board, even educated ones with a lot of information at their disposal, who are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all this other stuff that in social media, where this information is. But the reason for that is that, and when you do, but juxtapose that to, recently somebody did a study about, not when they say, but they work with us sometimes, did a study in the group of 8 largest economies in the world to say, how do they perceive South Africa? It was amazing that, and then did a study about South Africans, there. It was interesting that the most negative indicators we found was only among South Africans. Whereas people in Russia, in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Canada, Italy, France, they love to come here. They see this country as making a lot of progress. But South Africans, on the other hand, if you ask them whether this country is making progress, they will say, no, I think the country is going to the dogs. If you listen to talk radio, you will probably believe that. But community media can play that role that basically says, bridges that gap to say, actually, this is what is happening in this country. And I think it could also assist this government to prioritize communication. Because I think, generally, post-94, we have not prioritized communication. We react, generally. And community media plays a big role in that. But I think also last on this issue is that it is one of the bedrocks of transformation. If you want to transform the media landscape in South Africa, that's where you should start, bottom up, you know. And if you don't if you don't start bottom up, you are likely to scratch the surface, generally. So that's very, very important. But there are many other issues that muddy the water in this space. Having said that, you know, if I ask, I put an advert in the newspaper. I know these guys don't want to put adverts in the newspaper. I work in the newspaper industry. I would like you to continue doing that, but anyway, we can talk about that offline. However, I'm saying, if I were to put an advert anywhere and say, can I meet leaders of community media at a such and such a place, guess what will happen? You know, you'll have a guy from Caxton there, a guy from Media 24 there, Naspers. Caxton and Naspers have actually cornered this market. And they call themselves initially, there's a confusion as to whether it's a community media. In fact, Sanlam, which is another big business that you know actually runs an award ceremony each year, and I've been to a couple of those where they are talking about the community media award. That's what it's called. It's community media award. But you won't find anybody there who works in a community media in the classical sense, you know. And that is the confusion that needs to be clarified going forward, you know. And also the commercial model. Commercial models of community media is problematic because I know I spoke to Donald DeFoucault there. We were speaking in 2013 or something. They were talking about when this 30% issue was rearing its head to say, well, we will set aside 30% for community media, you know. But the problem with government is that things move so slowly. You know, it's been years. This idea is not new. It has been there for years, but it hasn't happened yet. I don't know whether many of you here who are in community media have experienced it. Have you? You know, so that's the challenge. And if you are talking about 600 billion, now imagine if you did a quick calculation as to how much 600 billion is and the impact it can have in communities. So that's one thing that you must look at. You know, that's, I think, the commercial model. And what happens is that because the commercial model is not working, what then tends to happen is that most of, especially in the broadcasting space, what tends to happen is that many of the people who get licenses to do community media, in the newspaper space, anybody can walk in and start their newspaper tomorrow. There's no license needed there, so it's free for all. But in the broadcasting space, it is actually regulated. So if you were to get a TV license to do a community media, community TV station tomorrow, and there are a couple of them that are there, and some of them have been involved in, and you will see that you will drive them into the hands of the commercial hounds like us. Because if you will get a license, but you wouldn't have the money to start a TV, to activate the TV station. So where do you go? You'll have to partner with somebody who has got the money, who can get you to air, and which is what has been happening. And then what then happens is that those people then start believing that they actually own those entities, as opposed that they are not community. You know, you find that board members there. Okay, I'm finishing now. Yeah, okay. I'm about to finish. But what then happens is that those people then start behaving as if, forgetting that these assets are community owned. They are supposed to be broader in their orientation. So they start making them private businesses. And that's the challenge. Quickly, some of the solutions would be that if the 30% thing happens, hopefully it can happen as quickly as possible. And let's try and put a deadline on that quickly. And secondly, I think you need boards there that are comprised of people that have got some integrity. And there are a lot of charlatans in this space, by the way. And you need to avoid that. But I think lastly, my point would be that community media needs to move from one platform. You know, this thing of, and in the commercial media space, people have got multiple platforms now. You know, in community media space, your newspaper, your TV, you know, you should be embracing other platforms in this space that are there. And I think, just imagine if you were to do a TV news station that is bottom up. You know, it will be the largest television news station in this country. It will be bigger than the SABC. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, a Q&A session was initially scheduled onto the program to start next, but we will be cancelling this session. There is another Q&A session that will happen directly after the Minister of Communications speaks. So all your questions can still be raised at that point. Local government is a sphere of government closest to the people. Our next speaker will talk about community media and local government. Now I'd like to call upon probably one of the most recognizable faces in the country at present, Mr. Masoto Moebia, ICCO.
Thank you, Program Director, Mr. Tahir Sema, the Minister of Communications, the Honorable Ms. Faith Mutambi, the President of SUCA, Mr. Congressman, and your executive, my colleague at GCIS, Dr. Donald Koka, the advisory panel member of SUCA, Dr. Mzwanele Main, and your colleagues on the panel, Tateka Mukelmampani and your colleagues in this movement at the procurement forum of the state-owned enterprises, friends in the media, ladies and gentlemen. In the audience, I have someone I consider an elder to me. I worked with her for 14 years. When I met her, I was much taller. I had, afro hair, and I smiled quite a lot. And that's Sister Wombumlani. I just want you to really and truly recognize that. I must tell you, in the work I do, and I must say I have a twin brother. He speaks a lot, he sees people a lot, and he works in the public space. I'm the twin that's very private, quiet, and follow developments rather. But I'm going to try and do what he does. I must say, perhaps it's best to start with a tough call. I'm truly grateful to be here with you at this time when I have to be communicating to all of South Africa's diverse communities at the same time. In this communication, there must be a clarion call that is made, which will mark yet another step in the journey we are taking, even as we deepen electoral democracy through the 2016 local government elections. The issue is, are local communities in South Africa a one-size-fits-all in terms of their communications outlook? At this point, Minister, I pause, because you and I were sitting there and listening to all the speakers taking our notes away. I'm finishing off yours. I'm taking of what is left from yours. I think the question I asked is a matter that has troubled me for a good part of the 2 decades I've worked at the Electoral Commission. At that time, we knew that in every community, we have to pretend we understand the makeup, the geography, the cadastre, everything concerning those local communities. And guess what? We went trial and error, one after the other, to do this work. And the question one must ask is it truly something that cannot be done by local communities and community media in particular? I've not been schooled in media platforms. I'm going to speak about this from the point of view of a user, of someone that needs that information to get down to people and to make sure that that information that gets to people is in fact meaningful. It's sourced from people that understand the geography and know and speak the language that the local communities speak. I think communication knows no 11 languages. It knows how to get one message from a point to another point where it is destined. I've also noticed that nothing is very static. I'm sad Gus is not here.
Yeah.
Because him and I went to a university together sometime, not so long ago, we're not very old. And you know, community media we used at the time was Imbus, you know? And anytime there was a state of emergency and we needed to meet as students, there was no time to print anything, there was no email at the time, you know, we didn't have cell phones. In fact, as students, we didn't have means of communication. But you would hear everywhere. Then you know we have to get to the Great Hall, there's a meeting. This is what community media is for many of us that operate in communities. I don't say this very lightly. You live in a country I serve. My colleagues and I, not so long ago, were required to get addresses and sufficient particularities of voters in a country that has 15 million households, 8 million of which don't have conventional addresses. But let me tell you, experience, even in this instance, has taught us that that information you're not going to source from cell phone companies. My son, who's not with me today, who lives somewhere not in my house, has a cell phone contract in my name. So if you go and try and locate him, you're going to use my contact details, which is incorrect. Community media is specifically located to do that. Michelle, we have great experiences coming out of Krokwe. Krokwe has been a very difficult experience, and I must say. But there is one thing we have learned even better. Community media has more details than many of us dare to ask. We found that there were communities there that listened on radio to a boy or girl they know because he or she grew up in that community and operates from a community radio station. They trust that person more because they speak to them, they know who their parents are, and often they say, "You cannot lie to me, I'm your elder." This is who they know. Journalists and community media are people we should learn to rely on. Sistover used to spend time doing education with us at the Electoral Commission. In fact, overlooking, having oversight in the area of work that we do education. You will be told there is no one size fits all. What am I trying to say? The need to communicate does not diminish between the rich and the poor. There is a basic amount of necessary communication that must be heard. In our case, every citizen turning 16 needs to know how to register as a voter, and when they turn 18, how to use that registration opportunity to vote and get their vote to count. They also need to know how that impacts on them in the community they live. This need is as true in rural communities as it is in metropolitan areas. It holds equally true for the rich in those areas where they live as it does for the poor in those areas that they live. The platforms of engagement, though varied, remain central to the fulfillment of this need to know. Local government is a sphere of government that we call the coalface of government. Every step of that coalface is often consultative. In fact, it requires that communities participate in the way that programs are developed. And let me pause for a moment to say that I noticed that many of the developmental programs that are run in local communities are in fact by law required to be publicized. And then I will read a newspaper that is printed in Johannesburg and distributed widely in the country. And you will find that local imbizos are publicized in them. Then I ask the question, how many of the people that will be consuming it are in fact the correct audience? I don't say this lightly. We have burned our fingers. We have tried to reach people. We have been told that this is a newspaper with the highest circulation to LSM this and LSM that. And we have found that we have remained outside of the people we miss and the people that we need. I want to say the challenge for all of us here is quite simple. Is it circulation we're looking for? Or is it relevance and penetration in the areas that we need to be communicating? In our job as the Electoral Commission, it is speaking to the people in those communities on media platforms that they understand and will speak to easily. I think we need to live a little bit into the future. I think we need to lift our eyes and see what Michelle saw. That the time will come when Polar News might be the main source of information for people living in Poland. That even as they tweet, that even as they have other platforms that are national, but that those things that really touch them the best and the most will be spoken to in the family, as we do, and the family would be Polar News in that instance. I've had the privilege of working on the African continent a little bit. I'm scared to say extensively, as some of you in this room might have done it more than I have. there is something I have come to appreciate. In the DRC in 2006, I worked and lived there, and my base was in Kinshasa. But I traveled fairly around that country because we had colleagues in 68 points around that country. I traveled to places such as North and South Kivu, Oriental, Katanga, Matadi, and many others. But this is the story I want to tell you. Just driving outside of Kinshasa in a 4x4, one of the best, Land Cruiser, to a distance of about 100 kilometers, took us 4 hours. We listened on radio as we left Kinshasa. It changed the stations as we went, and we got to the point where we did not have a signal at all. And then we went into the rainforest, and we had people coming and walking and overtaking us. And then later, we walked into villages. And in 2006, we sadly discovered that there were many in those conditions that had not heard that there's even an election happening. I am not joking when I tell you that some of them thought Seseko still lived at that time. And they thought that elections were actually something you don't hold openly. These are things for people that don't live in the rural hinterlands of that country. But I appreciated one thing though. The Roman Catholic Church had realized that there was a need to speak widely in the lead up to the 2006 general elections that were happening for the first time in 45 years. And through their local media network, they rapidly grew this, as we have heard what Michelle was doing. And as I speak to you today, that church uses media platform that speaks to local communities widely. The people and communities I've spoken to you about now rely on those for their communication. I know I have taken all of the notes from the minister. I'm going to pause in a while. But I want to leave us with a few thoughts and say to you, pound for pound, community media can be used more accurately and more targeted for the work that many of us do in local communities. Local government, it's about the people that live in that sphere. There's nothing wrong with having national media. We need to know what happens around us and further afield. But it is sad today that people know more about what happens in Johannesburg because they read the Sowetan than what happens in Hamashashani, because they never get local media that tells them that and take it very seriously. There's a second thing, and I think it has been said. It speaks about the issue and the characters of appeal. We often say, I have to tick a box. Government requires that we tick a box and comply. And we're going to look at circulation numbers. And you know, even in Pola, people believe that Pola News, with a circulation of about 5,000 or 10,000 copies, they think, oh no, it's too small. We'll rather go get a Sowetan and we'll pass it around and all of us will be interested. I think we need a rethink. For the IEC tough as it is, we've come to learn the hard lesson. People that we serve in those communities own media that we need to use. What are the challenges that I'd like to lift? One is, we cannot only consume that media. We need to develop that media. I need it cyclically. I need it between elections. Somebody might need it once a year. It will never be built if all of us are just consumers and we will not be investing in it. There are myths that we need to take away. One of those myths are those relating to the issue of Kinshasa, where because people did not know further afield from Kinshasa, even one of my colleagues said, Mosotho, this country is very difficult in 2006 when we were helping them. And he said, I have a temptation. And he was a general in the army. He said, I have a temptation that we organize a perfect election in Kinshasa. All of the world television crews are here. And we tell them that this election has happened throughout the country, the DRC. And imagine what that would mean. It would mean that the people in the rest of the country would not even know that some big event like that had happened. And that's another myth that community media would help us dispel. In closing, I want to say this. I accept that there is a lot we need to invest in. I accept that the coal face, it's an area where all of us need to know all of the things that are happening around us. And each one of us, I challenge that we take our rightful role and help this media that we all need. There will not be much happening to it if we all speak glossily about it, but we think less when we have to invest in it. Ladies and gentlemen, I have hidden amongst you in this room, and wherever I'm going to go after this, if they were looking after me or looking for me, I'm going to tell them that you had taken me hostage. And thank you very much. You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the program that you've been waiting for the most. I'd like to call upon Nikelwa Tengifene from SUKA, one of the executive members, to formally introduce our guest speaker, the Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed an honor to introduce the Minister. However, let me quickly also reflect. Mr. Pierre spoke about his first interaction with community media. Mine was called the Spear of the Nation, and that was at Fortec. There was something unique about the Spear. Nobody doubted its authenticity. When one person read it first thing in the morning, they'll say, Azikwe. And we knew indeed that Azikwe. And that's the depth that we bring to media. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, when SUKA was formed, I was well cushioned within government communications, but also privileged that the General Secretary did call me. And he spoke, but I didn't quite understand what really pushed the formation of such a platform. And now that I'm on the other side, I now appreciate a forum like SUKA. I think we underestimate the transformation that still has to happen within the state-owned entities. It's not just about the demographics, but it's also about where communication is positioned. Some of us are likely to have a foot within the Executive Council. an ear with the CEO and the board chairperson. And you'll understand how difficult, therefore, it should be to craft a message when you don't understand the nuances that were said within a board meeting or an engagement with the CEO in terms of where the organization is going about. And the irony is that the state-owned entities are the implementers of government policies. We take stands domestically and internationally and speak about government policies. But reality is that we are a bit distant from where the policies are designed, and therefore we may tend to misinterpret what those policies mean. But we become ambassadors of South Africa, and people listen to us. So it is important that we understand what government is doing and the direction, what are the imperatives of government in terms of putting South Africa forward. Therefore, Minister, we are the ears and the ambassadors for the government. And we are here, therefore, to listen to what you have to tell us about where government is going. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Minister.
You may be seated. You may be seated. I don't know whether this is the protocol that Malunga was talking about. Okay. Let me start by first acknowledging the chairperson of the Freedom City Publication Board. I know it's not a protocol, but I need to do that before yourself seated on the table in my left. Because she's the most senior person you are going to. She has to Mama Toko Pulwana. And then I must greet you, Chairperson of SUKA. And Kamukhelo, the CEO of SOEPF. We call it SUP. And then let me greet Ceci Michelle Mashiaji, the CEO of the CNI. There are members of the executive of the two institutions present here, and the advisory panel in the likes of Mumuz Malunga and Zwane Lemani. My acting Director General, Mr. Lefoko, is here in our midst. And then this invitation, I was told it was extended to various CEOs of state-owned enterprises, but I don't see anyone of them, unless I'm wrong. And also, our strategic media partners and yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, Minister.
Good morning.
Good morning, Minister.
Okay, I can hear you now. I was wondering, President Musutu or Congress or Kamukhelo who have just exhausted you, I don't know. No, I'm not going to exhaust you myself. I must say up front, when I received this invitation under the theme, the impact of community newspapers in deepening democracy as well as strengthening the living legacy of Peter Mandela, I felt deeply honored and privileged to be invited to come and address you. As you are aware, this is a critical moment of our lifetime, wherein we are cross-cutting the country, trying to get more votes, because there's another party now that is on our case. But I felt this morning, let me just run away or disappear like Musut to just come and address you. It's a pity the media is here. I wouldn't have loved such a situation. And can I urge to the media houses, don't show me, show the comrades on the right, because I'm busy campaigning where I am. But nevertheless, I think this thing is more critical in more than one way. Firstly, I think this is only coming just 6 days before the imminent local government elections, as Musutu has said. And secondly, we are gathered here 9 days after the world celebrated our global icon who led South Africa into its first non-racial democratic election, Dr. Nelson Mandela. And then I felt we need to start from the beginning. Why from the beginning? We had our unshakable belief is that the community participation and access to major tenets that characterize and upon which community media is accredited. Other tenets also include the issue of ownership, control and funding, which are rooted in the hands of community members, and they empower them to have control over the communication system. I won't deal much with the history of community media in South Africa. Then I heard a lot of you say 24 years into democracy, we haven't done much as a country. And then we haven't done much as a country, and I think it's time for action now. There are good policies in place. I had Kamukelo talking about the PFA that makes us not to deliver, but now also government is taking a decision to say government in all the three spheres, including its own state entity, you need to advertise 30% in community media. Is it happening? It's not. I've been traveling the country recently trying to check, interacting with community media to say, are you getting the support? The answer is no. In cases where it's said that 80% is sent to community media, this one item that myself and Donald don't agree, that they will tell you that it goes through the agencies.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they just got the clean money. I think I must say up front without fear of failure to say, I like the decision that has been taken by the president. It's one state-owned company that I'm proud of in the sense that they took a decision to say, we are not going to advertise in any mainstream media. We've got our own platforms, and then we have community media. And that's how we are going to advertise. Hence you see the attack now. It's not about anything, it's about this revolutionary decision that they've taken to say, no more print media, we can't do that, print media, print commercial media. So we're gonna do that. So, SOCA and the State Owned Enterprise Procurement Forum, I think you need to be congratulated in CNI included for this initiative which brought all of us here today, as well having previously committed yourself by pledging your support for community and small commercial media as defined in the MDPA Act. In the meeting that we held together, at least 2 years ago, somewhere in DBS premises. And I think that's why I also have to remind you today, I deliberately delayed it because 2 years ago I had to welcome most of you. You remember I had to wait for you to arrive. So with that past experience, I said, yeah, and today let me delay it. Because I had to wait. Congress knows will tell you how Congress was. So, us as a Department of Communication, in which GCIS will live in this department, and we will pledge our support to all of you. And I must say, Ms. Michelle, I think officially you should be our partner because this rhetoric that Donald has been telling me all this time to say, advertising. But I think Donald needs to be credited in the sense that the LSM will have revised and he has provided leadership. I think what is left only now is the resistance that we happen to get. But we know what are the reasons why people are resisting. At times you will be told of long-term contracts with advertisers, you know, when you ask this thing. But we know on the other end with my fellow colleagues that when you are told of long-term contracts, it's when officials are taken on holidays until December comes. Some fly as far as Mauritius. So I want to tell you, we are watching you. We are watching you. Because there's no long-term contract that cannot be. It must come to an end. Again, there are long-term contracts. And the normal contract in terms of the POB is 3 years. So since we've been in power, it's almost 3 years now. I wonder whoever is going to take another commercial contract, because there's commitment. There's a cabinet decision what I'm speaking to now, and it has to be implemented. And especially when it comes to the state-owned enterprises, the narrative is terrible. People don't know. You said there are 750 state-owned enterprises, but we don't see you physically in communities down on the ground. Can any one of you stand up here and proudly say, as next, this is what we have done to empower a community, a rural community in Kimberley? None of you can say that. Your procurement, we have attended some of your events. I was attending an ESCOM event last week in Halali. When I look at the caterer, that caterer doesn't represent the poor people of that area, still and where I was in Liphala. It's simple thing, catering. Of all of the cases we talk about inferior standards, that's what it said. A black person can do this. I'm not racist, but these are the issues that our own fellow people that were deployed in various state-owned entities, they undermine their own people. You talk about good quality. How will people do good quality if you're not empowering them? At the same time, that's when you demand discounts from these poor people. You demand discounts, but you are fair to the other people. You don't do that. You say, hey, madam, your price is so high, but at the end of the day, it's us who tend to exploit our own people. So I think now with this, we need to change the narrative. It's all of us sitting because it starts from us. Because in your reporting, estate-owned enterprises, you need to report on how have you improved the lives of the ordinary citizens. Because you tend to forget that yourself, you are the delivery arms of government. That's why you call state-owned enterprises. But normally, the narrative that you happen to see is when then you tend to leave this thing to the main departments that they are the ones that need to comply with the legislation 80/20 that you are referring to. It's only meant for government department. It's like yourself as state-owned entities, you live in a different way altogether. But I think I must appreciate this work that we are doing, Suka and Soup. That's what you say. So that you make sure that even our procurement initiatives start to address the bigger challenges of poverty and unemployment that we are dealing with as government. Then I want to also say this clear, loud and clear, that community media is indeed a democratic media, in the sense that you have seen a lot of resistance. And while I was still in Parliament, this commercial print media, they had an allocation of 1 million that they had to give to community media. And then when I came into office, a year before, they had just stopped to support. And then when I asked, why have you stopped? They tell me, we still want to see the transformation on media that the government is going to deal with. But by then there was a testing, print media testing report was already out. Then you ask them to say, the report is there, it has been sent to you. They tell you, I met with the bosses of the commercial print media. They tell you, no, it's up, the report is with our bosses, they are still looking at it. It was 2015. I'm still waiting for that feedback even today. The bosses are still looking at it, but at that meeting I challenged, who are the bosses? Because you are the bosses. Who's looking at this print media testing report? Because it made a lot of recommendations what needs to be done. Then you can see, and at the end of the day, they are no longer supporting community print media. The reason why? You can't, they've seen them now as an opposition. Because if you check the narrative and the stature which this commercial print media is taken, they've taken a particular view that this government doesn't do anything. So they are now taken the stance of the opposition, opposing the government. So what we are saying is that that's why in terms of our ethical policies, we have got a responsibility to support this community media establishment. And it has to happen in our lifetime now. Gone are those days to say that no, we're still doing what it is. If I must share with you, in our budget vote speech this year, our flagship project is this issue of media transformation. And we mean business. Elections are coming and going. You will see now as a department, we need to make sure that we drive this agenda, media transformation. And then, you know, the sector is dominated by the big four, who control almost everything, some of which are detrimental to the community print media themselves, sustainability, especially on issues of print and distribution costs. There's normally this story to say they'll print their own first, and then they'll print the daily news later. The trend you've seen on those listed media houses, because they will never prioritize community media. So that's why we're saying that's the other issue that we need to really change here. And then I think this status quo cannot be allowed to continue, particularly at the level of ownership. It cannot be allowed to continue. And then, as I'm saying, the time for species is over, and we can no longer continue to pontificate on this matter without implementing action. It's in our strategic plan. GCIS in particular, there's a strategic plan. They talk to these issues. The department itself, they talk to these issues. And MDDA, we said to them, it's time we need to be in this process. And Mr. President and delegates, I'm happy to inform you that the work is currently underway to finalize the media transformation policy. We're starting with our colloquium on the 25th to the 26th of August. And I'll urge all of you to be participant. And I think I'm getting a note from the chair that all of you, because we want you to contribute so that at the end of the day, you don't tell us you don't know what is it. We'll have to remind you this is your own product. And as part of finalizing this policy, we will also investigate the policy of pooling government media assets with a view to support the creation of a black media-owned house in the country. We need colleagues, one of the biggest achievements of these days that government is coming to power was the creation of a regulatory environment which ensured that the community media flourishes. That is one thing that we achieved. And then we have done that with the understanding that members in the small communities should get content generated by themselves. This is a vital point that cannot even be emphasized. So, as government, we are well aware of the many challenges the community media is facing, which include also the rapidly changing of technology, such as the advent of the internet and social media. But while we are there, we cannot take things for granted to say that everybody has got access. From the villages where I'm born, where I come from, where I normally visit, you still find elderly women doing grades. You still find those people that even young kids now, when you want to inculcate the culture of reading, because of late they are so-called model C schools. How do we empower young people to learn their mother tongue? Through print media that's written in their mother tongue. So when we are dealing with that, we need to also look at that to say, then we need to empower this sector. And we are also proud of both the investment by media houses on investing in journalism divisions, which has instead been substituted by greater appetite for sensationalization of news to create a buying mood, and therefore more revenues and less journalism, to the rising of the juniorization of many newsrooms as a result of experienced and skilled journalists leaving the industry when the powers that implement their rationalization and cut input costs. That's what is happening now. These challenges unfortunately mean that media outlets are investing less in the quality of what they do. They focus on making huge profits at the expense of serving the public, and also they undermine the public trust. You would all understand what, and I would also raise on this issue. People have been discussing this debate of censorship at the SABC. They've been raising, there's been a hype, and the people are saying, where's the Minister of Communication? Why is he so quiet? Not that we don't know what to say, but there's no censorship. I don't know what do you mean by censorship. I've been arguing that to say, what do you mean by censorship? I'll take a typical example of the opponent media house to the SABC. You check the narrative throughout, it's something negative about this government. It's the negative. And this is the propaganda that you are feeding our people to believe that there's nothing that is happening in the country. Then you look at it vis-a-vis the SABC's mandate to inform, educate, and entertain. So we cannot allow a situation wherein the public continue to be misled. We have been cross-countering the country now, and luckily enough, I was there very young before 1994. In the villages where I come from, having electricity was like a dream. For people to have roads over their head, it was a dream. For us to see a tar road, it was like a dream. But you know now when you visit those villages, there are polo lines, tarred road, running water. We grew up collecting water from the wells. So government has done a lot, but you don't see that narrative. The story that you see now is how local government has failed. You don't see the positive on what government has done. So that's why I say this is the mediocrity which arguably undermines the public trust. And then what I like about community media of late, they are in the pole position to mitigate those effects, and indeed trends have proven in the world that the community media sector is making inroads. Hence also this resistance to invest on them, because they are telling the stories of the local people there. And there are people who are telling the stories to say, our lives have improved. Yesterday I visited a community in Rapotokwa, outside Vilalila, and when I arrived there were more than 300 elderly people. I arrived, I was 93, and I was not aware this is a daily thing. I found there were tables that were nicely set like this. It's elderly people and the destitute, the poor ones. I'm told every day, Monday to Friday, they are fed with nutritious food. It's meat. We ate that food ourselves. Nice food, more than what you're going to eat if you're going to eat today. But as the story has not told. Then when I arrived there also, I found Inkosi has got 1,000 blankets. And then I said, Inkosi, where did you get these blankets from? I fundraised from the nearby mining companies, and then I'm trying to give these poor blankets because it's cold. But that story won't feature anywhere. You won't see it anywhere. But this is happening. You see 300 people being fed daily. The only thing that they're not fed over the weekend is because the people that are cooking for them, they need to have their rest day. And it's a belief that also they've got their families that are coming, that are not working, so that those people must have rest day. So Tatem Sutra has already said that as we know that local government is in the coalface of grassroots service delivery, that's what community media also enjoys, because they are serving the community. I always like to tell the story of one mayor. They advertise their IDPs, in the Soweto, them staying in the village somewhere in the book, to say there's a council meeting in the Mutali municipality. And then the people in the village don't even have money to go to town to buy that newspaper. It's a luxury. Then a poor official, he decided to advertise in the local newspaper, they call him Go News. You know Go News, it's one of your clients. That poor official was fired for doing that. Why didn't you put my advert with my photo in the Sowetan in the city press? You see, that's why I'm saying we also have a mindset that we have to deal with. To say whose interest is in this man? Is for here to become popular or to serve the people so that you invite people to come to the public participation meeting in the municipality. We still have such egos, and I think even amongst yourselves here, you are here, actually you're communicators. And I say by the show of hands, how many of you have supported community media in your adverts? Nah. How many? I see Salga, you're complaining because you are dealing with that. But none of you has done that. So I don't know if you are not doing that to say, this is what Mandela preached for us to empower our communities. Now, if you are seated here, you are a senior public official, you are a communication officer, you are a procurement officer, and then you're not empowering your own people, whom do you think is going to empower them if us as public servants were not taking the lead? So I think then there is much that still needs to be done, because Nelson Mandela encouraged the creation of a society where the voiceless will have a voice, where dialogue takes place even in the most remote place. I think I want to challenge all of you as you live here. I'm responsible for community outreach programs. I normally, of late of certain since through the influence of Matlano, I always ask people whether they know all these people interfaces. Oh, the response that I get, you are not visible. People don't know you. And I'm trying to understand, whom are you actually saying? If it's not the poor, the rural poor that you're supposed to serve on the ground. How many of you has done outreach programs to market their entities in the most rural villages? Can I see a show of hands? It's not even half of them. Can you see that? That's a problem amongst ourselves here. So I think then if we have to follow Mandela's legacy, we'll have to do something to that effect. Actually, we all emulate Mandela, and trust Mandela Day is not for July Mandela month. We need to have to do that on in a daily use of our lives. Can we put our people first? Remember, these are the most people that put this government in power, the rural poor, and they still have confidence in this government. And yourself as officials, you should be implementers to make sure that whatever you do, because the procurement policies are there to say you need to support local people, but we're not implementing to our maximum benefit. Let me also touch on the issue of support, as I was indicating, to say since I have assumed office, we have been consistent in our support for community media. And just 3 weeks ago, I was addressing the similar gathering of community media stakeholders. Clearly, I think that's what I've inspired to Donald and Jane, that we need to have this undying love to our love is the passion for community initiative that are driven, that remains unshaken, so that we support this community media. I'm also aware that you are currently negotiating with the SABC to end 36 laws in order to provide SOEs with platforms to share and provide accurate information about the institution. I'm aware of that. And I'm also aware that you've created a portal system and your own publication that will enrich and facilitate the flow of information within the SOEs as well as government. So I think you deserve a round of applause for that. We must also then, we need to tell own stories from our own framework of references. Journalists may be at the center of the reputable media environment, but they are not the only ones chronicling the world around them. This is where the idea of owned media becomes relevant. You should not be apologetic about telling your own stories. You know, there is this narrative that says there's a move to privatize most of you.
Yeah.
You know the reason why? Because majority of you CEOs, you are black. And a black person can't do anything. But if I was a CEO or a senior manager in a state-owned entity, I will act in such a way that I empower local people, even those that are pushing for privatization, they won't have a chance. They have realized that they are not reaching out. I agree most of you are based in Pretoria or Cape Town. And then you tend to forget whom are you actually supposed to serve. So that's why we are saying now, when it comes to state entities procurement forum, you must become an enabler to achieve this historic mandate. You must not sit here and create stumbling blocks, because that's what everybody do when you're in offices, claiming that this cannot be done. And instead, you must offer solutions on how can be done. I think when the policy is put to you, you don't have to wait like this to say, hey, this is what the policy. But you can be creative. In so doing, you will be implementing that particular policy. Am I wrong? Because you normally, these rules, they are made to guide you how things must be done. But you find a situation where now you're creating, most of you are creating stumbling blocks. You can imagine rough with this revolutionary decision that they've taken that you're no longer going to use lawyers. I don't see that communication. I don't see it coming very sharply. I must say, I was in the family of our late MEC who died in the car accident recently. And then you expect that family to be knowing what is the activities of RAF. They were asking me, how do we deal now with these issues of RAF? Then what came to my mind to say, at least that is the family of the MEC, we expect them to know, what about an ordinary citizen? What about an ordinary citizen? And then they will still get exploited by these lawyers, whereas government has created a platform where people can get all their money seamlessly without being exploited by lawyers. But we're not communicating enough. And then a lot of this regiment of people, when you interact with them, selling on the fact that they don't have information. I've said state-owned entities here, they're delivering of government. And that's why service delivery is not the responsibility of Sanga and local government. They took their own issues that they need to deal with basic services. But these other issues of economic empowerment, you should be yourself seated here leading that, because that's where the money is, to empower the community. But in our country, it's not happening there. So that's why I think this state-owned enterprise procurement forum, I like it in the fact that it's a pro-transformation procurement forum that speaks loud and clear on the transformation agenda. And you need not to be apologetic CEO, and you're going to make it through the support of some of your colleagues seated here. And then I want to again emphasize the relationship between my ministry with yourselves and the CNI now, as I've pronounced. We are cementing it here today. And then you must continue to believe in your vision, because of the positive thinker sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible. I know the environment that you live in, it also includes us as a political principle to create that enabling environment. But I think it's, with my colleagues at cabinet level, the president has also taken this as an initiative, because he realized that's one place where we are not doing it. And I want to say, gone is the time where we can rest. There's no time to rest now. We have a responsibility to protect our democracy and defend the image of our country. especially those who profit from manufactured chairs often served with our breakfast or at supper during the evening, let's eat. No, consider. I think we need to honor Madiba by doing what is expected of us. Empower the most historically disadvantaged through our procurement systems, through our communications. And then when we do so, we also need to honor Madiba. We're going to vote of us on the 3rd of August. And I know there are a lot of predictions by the doomsayers that the majority of South Africans are not going to vote. But I know they are going to vote, and then they will never let their heart-felt democracy to go to the doom. And therefore, ours, to make this work, we need to do what we've been employed to do. It's our responsibility to implement these government policies that are good, that are pro-poor, so that we must also be sure that our people must benefit from this. It will be irrational to assume that people know that what we're doing is very irrational. They don't know. And you need to empower them. So I think this session to all of us today, it only marks the beginning of more activities yet to become and to be rolled out by your good selves. I see it now, it's a commitment. The leadership is agreeing on your part. I would also like to, as I close, to end with the quote by our stalwart, the longest serving president of the ANC, O.R. Tambo, who said, I quote, "The fight for freedom must go on until it is won. Until our country is free, happy and peaceful as part of the community of men, we cannot rest." Close quotes. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to the Minister for taking out time to be part of this event, to be with us. We know she has many responsibilities on her shoulders, but despite that, she has taken out this time to be with us, and we'd like to thank her. Can we give her another round of applause? Media transformation must happen in our lifetime. Community media needs our support, and we need community media. The importance of community media can never be overstated. Our today is better than yesterday, and our tomorrow will be better than today. Ladies and gentlemen, the next segment of this program is a Q&A. But before we go to the Q&A, I think there's a small announcement that needs to be made.
Thank you, Chairperson. With your permission, I would like to ask whether Makati is available. Makati. Minister, I think you remember during the launch of SOCA, there was a young lady working for SABC, and she was not part of the group of people who were suspended released, and she stayed at the point. Come here. She was writing a piece. She was writing a master's on communication, but with a specific focus on the SOPs. And I think what she did was the research that she conducted was on the state-owned entities practitioner and also their challenges, because she was deeply worried about how the lack of empowerment and lack of support of communicators. She approached SUCA, and we facilitated for all the other communicators so that she can start engaging. Now, a week ago I went to SABC and I chanced upon her. And she said to me, I managed to get my master's. Wow. And she said to me, And she says to me, I'm carrying a book and my research that I want to hand over to the minister today. And I'm not sure whether she has it, but she will speak on it on her behalf. I'm not a spokesperson, I was never involved. So, she said she took it and gave it to Kaiser. She thought that Kaiser was coming here. But Kaiser is meeting you at in Toyando. Yeah. So she does not have it here. But I wanted her to be acknowledged because she was the one who took enough trouble to investigate the challenges that are facing by communicators within the SOPs. And I think by and large, we owe it to her for the gratitude and the passion that drove her to write that particular book.
So should I receive in advance? I think what I'd love to say and assure her isn't that when you do a research, there are recommendations. I have not yet read the book. I think when we come to our next session, we'll be reporting to you how we implemented our recommendations.
Anything? What you want us to say in a few words?
All protocol and left, thank you so much. I would just like to thank Suka and the Department of Communication for really granting me this opportunity to investigate the challenges that communicators and state entities have been facing. And I found a few challenges actually, and I'm just going to give a little bit of a summary and recommendation basically. Some of the few challenges that state-owned entities communicators have been facing recently has been mostly lack of budget because their role is basically overlooked compared to other roles. There's an issue of lack of integration in terms of different departments in the state-owned entities where you find communications being under marketing or being, under any kind of department that doesn't really speak to communications itself. And there's also an issue of the leadership also, the issue that you've mentioned where the leadership has a problem. There's the communicators have a problem with interacting with leadership in an executive level, for example. So some of the issues that also occurred during the time was also basically lack of knowledge of Suka, from some of the communicators that I spoke to. So in my opinion, I believe that Suka is doing a great job, and I believe that it needs to be more communicated in terms of its existence and the assistance you can have in communicators in South African state-owned entities. I also wanted to ask, do you have a website? You do. That's perfect, because I think I would like to personally assist in terms of helping publicize Suka, because it has helped. Because it has assisted some of the people that I spoke to say, ever since Suka came in, we are like that the kind of from SABC. He has been here as an executive member, so that it has assisted in terms of centralizing the role of communications in the state-owned entities, and assisting with confidence with communicators with state-owned entities to say we have a platform and a system to communicate on. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll now move into the Q&A session. The Minister has confirmed with me that she will be available and she will stay for the Q&A session despite the busy schedule, so thank you for that. Can I please ask for a roving mic to be sent to the table on my right? And I will take 3 questions, and we can then pose the questions to the table to my right. Thank you, the roving mics are here. When you ask your questions, can I please ask that you stand and introduce yourself, and then, if necessary, indicate which of the panel members or which of the speakers that were here today you'd like to direct that question to. I'm sure many of you have questions to ask to the various speakers that spoke to you today. So can I get a few questions? Some very important topics were discussed today. I see one hand to my right, one hand to the back of the room, and the lady to my left with glasses. Could we take those three? And then we'll move to the next three. The gentleman that's standing with the suit was first.
Yes, good day. My name is Adrian. I'm from the Wood Research Commission. It's actually not a question, but it's a challenge. I think a lot of the state-owned entities sitting here, and especially myself, I've rather spent 60% of my budget on community newspapers and the media. The problem is, it comes through supply chain management. Now, if I want to spend anything in a community area, even using a service provider, I'm going to get 3 quotes.
Yes.
Those service providers must be on the register of Treasury and with ours, and they're not. Meaning, whenever I'm going to a community and I want to use the service provider, or even environment in that area, I cannot spend my money. That is the challenge, and that's why you didn't see any hands. If I do a media campaign in Waterbeach and I want to use all the community newspapers, my supply chain says I will get 3 quotes because it's over a huge amount. Now I will get quotes from Caxton Group, and then I will get from CNI, and at the end they undercut the prices, and then you see you don't use the community papers that you because out of the hand, you can't interfere with the process. So that is a big challenge that I think we need to address that in the future, because I love to use community papers and even empower people in those areas, but I think it needs to be addressed. There must be a way around it. So just as it does.
Thank you for that question. It's a very important question. Can we take the next question?
Hello, my name is Steven Sergio, editor of Mabembeza Community Newspaper. Yeah, it's Mabembeza. Google it, you'll find it. Okay. My question is rather of a suggestion. How can the group on the table, the GCIS and the DOC, work with us community newspapers in making a document of some sort called best practices, to working with government entities, departments, and even on local municipalities, because we find that we've made our own best practice in terms of learning ins and outs, and it's more bureaucratic in terms of not us giving the information to other newspapers out there because we have not introduced each other. How can we maybe make a forum maybe where we can create some sort of policy or some sort of best practice document to actually empower us in following the right processes in getting adverts and editorials? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can we take the next question?
Thank you. My name is Mayahabo Serumudia from Likunutu Community News. I just want to check with regards to the 30% government advertising spend. I hear a lot of that statement saying on community media. So in community media, there's broadcasting and there's newspapers. I want to just find out in terms of the numbers of that 30%, how much is it going to be directed at community newspapers? Because in our experience, some of this money is always rolled out to broadcasters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I direct those 3 questions to the table on my right? If I can ask the Minister of Communications to provide input to those questions. I see the acting DG of GCIS is here as well, and he's also offered to answer some of your questions. And together with the acting DG, can I ask the SUCA President to also input on those questions that were asked? Can we get a roving mic to the table first to the Minister? Thank you.
Hi. From procurement side, we are not good communicators, I agree. that practice note that was issued by National Treasury, SUF went to National Treasury and asked for that practice note and instruction note to be repealed. Where we are now, that practice note is repealed because it was going to make this country ungovernable, unfortunately. So I will probably take it offline with you, but where we are now, if you issue a quotation request, tender, whatever, they don't have to be on the database. Only when you appoint them, you can even appoint them. And once they are appointed, you then have a chance. I think it's about 7 days. Where's my colleague? I think you have 7 days to then register them on the database. Because Treasury before, when they issued, they says, yes, you can't. They said, if you think about procurement, if you think about a supplier, that supplier must be on a database. So it's now repealed. And that's some of the work that we did. I do commit, and I'll probably work with the department and the ministry to develop that kind of a booklet on how to do business with government. That we can do, and we do go out to the communities, and we will partner with the minister. We'll go with her to the communities where we can present how to do business with state-owned companies that are operating in those regions.
I have got a community outreach program on Friday in the troublesome Malamene area. I hope it's going to come and join. Isn't that's what he's saying? Okay. Then also to add on that one, because this issue of the national database is problematic. And some of us who go to the villages will experience it. When people have to be catered, you are waiting for a supplier coming from Poloko and almost 600 kilometers to the village where you are. And then when you ask, they are not registered in the national database. I am also urging all of you, because it's not the treasury that should do that. Yourselves as departments, if you are to put that, to say you call them to register, so that you run that awareness together with CIS. I think that's the program. We've noted it now as a one they will have to run that to say it's a national register on the database. Then the issue you've addressed it. The other one is 30%. Donald will explain to you what happens, but I've taken a start to say from now onwards, I need to interact with administration. Every month I want to see who has been empowered. Part of this meeting with EXCO when they report, there's a template that I've sent there, because this, I want to deal with the politics of it. And then I think I've distracted them long ago. I don't want to hear anything about middlemen. Deal direct with the stations, deal direct with the media houses. But the challenges that we've experienced, remember there's the PFMA that we have to comply with. Without a tax clearance, we can't give you government money, because it emanates to audit findings on the part of the department. Because it's not a matter of you coming here in amend, we are not supported, we are not supported, whereas you yourselves, you are not ensuring that you comply. And compliance is a simple thing. I think SARS have simplified those things. To get the tax clearance certificate, you just need to comply. Unfortunately, there's no. Because without a proper tax clearance certificate, you won't get any funding. I had a meeting recently with community broadcasters. Somebody was lamenting that the government of Kimberley is owing him over 350,000 and he is to be liquidated. But how will the government pay him if he doesn't want to pay tax? Because we are seated here because of the taxpayers. Yeah. That tax, it generates to additional fiscals. So that's a law that has to be complied with. But Donald, I want you to go to the specifics by defect. Because the sense that I'm getting here is that you're not getting it. That's the sense that I'm getting based on that question.
Thank you.
No applause. What happened to the applause? Very briefly, unfortunately I just stepped outside, so I missed the core of the question. last year we spent around about 36 million rand in community media. And the 36 million rand obviously could have been a lot more, but we do have challenges that relate to compliance. So as I was leaving, I heard a question that was basically asking, should we not develop some kind of best practice together? And I think that is a very important intervention, and I welcome if anybody wants to assist us to do that, we'd be more than happy to do it. Out of the 36 million, roughly 60% of it was allocated to broadcasting, primarily community radio, and 40% of that has gone into print. Now, print also includes not only the newspapers, but there are small and medium-sized black-owned magazines that are part of the media mix that we look at. So we are not there. If I look at the total budget that was the media buying budget for GCIS, it was around about between 260 and 270 million. So, if we were doing the optimum, we should be getting at least 60 million of that money allocated to community. It says that much work needs to be done in terms of compliance, but I think you have a partner with the SUKA and SUPIA, and you also have a partner with the CNI. Let's see how we can work together to improve that. Thanks.
Thank you, members of the panel. Can I take 3 more questions?
Yeah, I think on the last issue of registration within for tax purposes, I think also SARS need to run very aggressive campaign to educate people within the local areas. More often than not, when people register with for tax purposes, they will tell you that, hey, when they're using this guy's going to give my money. So I don't want to register. They forgot that that is a cushion for them as well, once they register as part of SARS. So in as much as we are building our communities, just imagine publishers who have no clue about the purpose of tax. What is worse about an ordinary man on the street in the rural area, in Kani, for that matter? So we are subjecting ourselves to the challenges that we should be able to address. So I'm saying that we are calling on also SARS to make sure that they become proactive to our communities and reach out and stop using media agencies to run their campaigns for communications.
I wear many hats. I want to make a contribution, not wearing the minister's advisory hat, but to make a contribution based on the other roles that play outside. I really think it's important even for government to be a bit more aggressive in driving transformation. I mean, if you look at these media people, this community media, the kinds of turnovers we're talking about are actually tax-exempt type of levels. So there should be no issues around tax, this tax, that. There should be a general amnesty because we know that we're talking pitiful turnovers here, So I think government must be a lot more progressive as it were, and we should not be making these kinds of excuses.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have 3 more questions? Feel free to ask as many questions as you want to the panel. These people sitting to my right are the highest decision-making individuals within the communication space in government. So you have the eyes and ears of key decision makers within the communication space in government. So feel free to ask your questions. Can I take the next 3 questions? I see many more hands going up. Let's try and get to all of them, but let's take 3. Try and keep your questions as short and sharp as possible. Okay, I know I've noted the lady to my left in white. You can go first, please.
Thank you. My hand was actually sore because it's been up for a long time.
I'm sorry.
Firstly, I'd like to congratulate SUKA as well as CNI for such an awesome initiative. I think this is how we take South Africa forward. We will never be able to take South Africa forward if we don't take such radical decisions. There's an African proverb.
can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, before I can even say who I am, there's an African proverb that says, an enemy outside can do you no harm, but an enemy inside can do all of the damage. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dlantla Josie. I come from a company called Corporate Skills Development Services. What we do is we in skills development training. We work with small businesses. We train them on how to get a tax clearance, how to understand the PFMA laws, how to get the tendering opportunities, and we also have an incubation program for businesses. And I think, Ms. Michelle, you must consider working with us because we will assist your community newspapers to be able to actually stand a better chance of getting business opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we take the next question?
Good afternoon. My name is Franz Malati from Malati Media Group. CNI is our agency representing 4 of our community newspapers. I wanted to ask in terms of time frames, the 30%, when are we really going to implement that? Because I think we need to put in the time frames. We've been waiting for too long. I've been hounding Michelle, calling them every time, hey guys, are you not making, you're not looking? So I think because we have an opportunity with the minister and then with the DJ as well, please let's talk time frames so that we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, the lady at the back. Thank you.
Hi, Minister. Genevieve Quintal from Business Day. I understand, the importance of community newspapers in this country is big, and the SABC has a big part to play in getting to communities. And you did touch on the issue of censorship at the SABC. I just want to find out from you, the whole controversy regarding this ban of showing footage. Are you saying yourself you don't believe in censorship, even though ICASA did ask the SABC to withdraw it? Thank you.
Thank you. Can we squeeze in one more question in the interest of time so that we can address as many questions as possible?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Aaron Maleke. Minister, I want to acknowledge the presence of Mr. 30%. The man who made 30% a reality, and the Dutch man. I remember one of our engagement with MDDA Forum when he introduced the 30%. We thought it was a far-fetched idea, but it happened only in 2 weeks. We were surprised. And unfortunately, he was unceremoniously removed, and the 30% went with him. So we never saw, we only hear the figures now, we have never seen even a single part of that 30% that has been set here. And then I also want to raise the issue of advertising agencies as opposed to GCI as procuring advertisement. We've got 9 provincial offices of GCIS in every province, and most of the people that are doing nothing, they're not working. And then now those people, they could be procuring advertisement for newspapers in the province because they know all provincial newspapers in the provinces. And then one of my experience with the Northwest province is that it only takes 2 weeks for payment to receive from GCIS if it goes directly. It takes 3 to 6 months to get it from the middleman, which is one of the things that really has caused a lot of havoc. Because of when the issue of 30% was introduced, there were a lot of imaging advertising agencies that came in, and most of them, they procure adverts from us for free. We carry the cost for printing, they advertise for free, and they will wait for 6 months before we get paid. That's one of the problems that we had. Lastly, Minister, in one of your roadshow when you were introduced as the minister, you crisscrossed the country and we raised issues with the MDDA. And I'm definitely surprised that the MDDA still exists today. Because, when coming to the print media, most
newspapers that exist today have never been funded by MDDA. And those that do not exist are the ones who were funded by MDDA. You know. So we're hoping that the issue will be addressed, but we have never had anything since then. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can I hand over back to the panel to answer the questions? The panel can choose who goes first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. The issue, I think there's one item that we should bring to the attention of all members present. The purpose of this gathering is exclusively without any limitation, focusing on the community really and its challenges and also its goals. We, however, do not preclude any other questions that would suggest otherwise that may be asked by Jim. But our view currently is that the issue of SABC and censorship does not arise in this particular gathering. We would want this gathering to be respected in terms of the focus on this. And if there's any interest that they would want to entertain the minister on the side, probably after this particular gathering. But I think the minister will be guided by us in terms of responding to issues that are in the organization. The last item, I think, is an item in terms of how do we relate to the 30%. The 30% remains a permanent issue. We want to come up with solutions, but we must appreciate the fact that this particular gathering is a first of its own kind. We might not necessarily generate ready-made response today, but it gives us an indication of what issues are outside there. We are prepared as SOCA and CNI, and as well as state-owned entities procurement forum, to start and begin to look at what challenges are there and able to address the minister directly. And that's what we are going to be doing going forward. The minister has indicated that she's going to be leaving us right now to attend another function. But what we are going to do, we'll collate all the concern that members are addressing here so that we can able to share with her in details and able to provide remediable challenges, remediable solutions to those particular challenges. I do not want to sound as if I'm censoring individuals, but our view is that this platform, we want to safeguard it to ensure that it receives the desired expectation. More often than not, we lose the sense of what we have put together here to achieve. Communities to us are priorities for now, and they receive our undivided attention. Thank you.
Thank you. I get a sense from what I said that 30% is not happening. Though Mr. 30% is here on my right hand side. You have raised a very direct question. When is it happening? On the other hand, there are figures that have been reported of 26 million over the last financial year. I think it should be a cause for concern to me. Hence, I'm saying, I've since instructed that we need accountability. Because this is what I get all over as I've been throughout the country to say we have been recovering 30% media spend. There's questions that I'm also inundated with all the time from the parliamentary questioning. There are figures that are being used. But part of my outreach program is to assess on the ground are you actually getting this 30% is percent. Like I'm saying now, this is the information that we always share with SUKA and CNI, so that it also assists us to verify this facts on the ground. Yeah, it might be that others are the beneficiaries. You heard the colleague from the press, they seem to be getting it. Then yourself will have to look at that. So the province, I think the allocations need to look at that also, the province, what allocation. But at times you see that there are many community medias in one province, in the other ones. But in terms of the booklet, I see the balanced one that I began to say that. And then we need to be a fair, equal. We are South Africa. The reason why we established 9 provinces was just to assist the national government in the delivery to operate as well. So this one is that I've got keen interest on. As I said earlier, gone are the days that we do a lot of talk, then we don't implement what we say. I think that suffices. I can assure you, working together with Suka and Super. We will together say that this one thing that we need to do, because these state entities here, they are the ones that we know. The one that are sustainable as one is said is the one that MDB is going to be funded. The one that are funded by MDB, that's why at times we announce that let's first focus on those ones that collapsed. Because there was money invested there, but mostly like China. I would like you to assist us a lot in the sense, most of them collapsed due to the governance challenges.
Yeah.
So I want to rope you as a partner, definitely for free, as you have pledged, as you have pledged, so that we need to deal with that because most of them collapsed due to the governance structures that I've said. And then on the gentry, that's the issue that I want to deal with it. And then I won't be, I think I need to also address you on this matter that is raising, she's raising. Because it's not secret that the media, including the one that she works in, they've taken a particular position towards government. What they report mostly is scandals. Like I indicated the story of the rapporteur Ganganda Kosi Masha. You will never get such stories in the mainstream. And I always say, I'll give you a typical example for the xenophobic attack that happened 2 years ago in the country. The outcry was solely on what government has not done. These day media, print media, they forget that they are an important stakeholder, that they should have also been educating the community that it's wrong to practice xenophobia. Same thing with the school banning. It becomes a government problem. The media will be sensationalization that thing, but not also teaching the nation to. I've never seen any mainstream media writing an article telling people why they should not ban schools. You will find people who are writing their opinion pieces written not in the editorial column. And I want to challenge you to that effect to say, why do you call that if it's not censorship? But like your president has said, I'm ready to engage you outside it.
Thank you.
The 9 days.
Thank you. Can we all rise in respect of the...
I think before we have not finished because officially Michelle needs to give a vote of thanks.
Okay.
And Michelle has indicated to me that she will not accept that she will give the vote of thanks in the absence of the minister. So I cannot be held hostage. She can leave, but right now they are going to account for Michelle. And Michelle does not. Michelle.
Okay. In light of that, can I please call upon Lola Michelle Mashiane, CEO of Community Newspaper.
Hello, I'm not sure what time it is right now, but I'm thinking it's afternoon already. Good afternoon. I'm amazed with the number of people that turned up today. We did organize something like this in February. It was small, but I can see that our breakfasts are growing. So I'd like to thank everyone that has attended our breakfast today. In particular, I would like to thank Mr. Congress Makamu, Senior President, for his confidence in supporting community media. And also, I would like to thank the SOEs that have gathered here today to attend this breakfast. The SUPF, CEO Kampano Mampani, thank you for the opportunities that you've announced today for CNI. Mr. Mzi Marunga, thank you for enforcing encouragement of support for community media. And also Mr. Musutu Mebia, IBC CEO, I also thank him, even though he's not here. And I would also like to thank Tahir Sama from Sauna. Thank you very much, Tahir, for your support. You are always attending our breakfast. Thank you very much. And also I would like to thank the GCIS, Mr. Popo and Mr. Mani. I'm hoping that going forward, you guys' attendance being here today, to me, it shows that you are supporting CNI and we will also start seeing bookings coming from the GCIS going forward. And also to our Honorable Minister, Faith Mutami, thank you very much for supporting the vision of CNI, which is to transform and sustain community print media. And also, thank you very much for adopting CNI as a partner. We appreciate and embrace the commitment you made today.
One last thing before we let the minister go. I promise this is the very last thing. Can we call all panel members to the front with the minister for an official photograph?
Oh, bueno, salió.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the official closure of today's engagement. I'd like to thank you formally as your program director. It was an absolute honor to address you. Thank you very much. Travel safely. Goodbye. As communicators, government and civil society is to bring government closer to the people, to ensure greater accessibility and accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the doorstep of local government elections. And it is our responsibility to ensure that this complex machinery of local government is better understood by our people. It is also our responsibility to ensure that the roles and responsibilities of councillors is better understood, so that our people can understand how to address their needs before it gets taken to the streets. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here under the banner of the Community Newspaper Initiative, the South African Communications Entity and Association, the South African Procurement Forum, and we are gathered here to also understand the importance of community media. This is the voice of our people, and we should give it the respect it deserves and the time that it deserves. The South African Local Government Association has taken a decision to ring-fence 30% of its advertising budget to be directed to community media. I encourage my colleagues from the state-owned entities to do the same. It is our responsibility to ensure that we support community media. And in supporting community media, we will reap the benefits of talking to our people. It is also the intention of the Minister of Communication